That when you tell people that you are expecting, right, then you notice that in Singapore, people always come up to you and say, good luck. Yeah. All the best. You're going to need it. Sleep. You're going to need it. That's it. Shag lah, bro. But then, like American people or European people, they'll be like, we are so happy for you. You must be so happy.
I'm getting old. I don't have the energy to deal with the third one. And the monetary it's a very practical point. And I'm at this stage where the kids are more or less okay. They're 3, they're 6, they can play with each other. You don't need to wake up and do the routine again. There's an inertia to go and do a third kid. So no.
Like, it's like PTSD.
Yes.
The story goes like, because I need to plan for a kid, then we need to like work longer. I need to get that next promotion. But then the problem is that if I'm going to get the next promotion, it means that my JD is going to change, and then I actually have less overall time to spend with my kid. Then what's the point, right? Like, I spend more time in the office, but I end up spending less time with my kid. But then I need to spend more time in the office to be able to afford having a kid.
During the national budget, the statement, right, when Lawrence Wong was in Parliament and he talked about the budget and talking about having more children and all that, right? He put up a family of 7. That means 2 parents and 5 kids. If you own a car and you can own like a, say, Toyota Prius Plus or a Toyota Noah and you have 7 seats, including the driver, fine. But if that family of 5 kids does not own a car, they cannot take a Grab.
Yeah, you're right.
Because a Grab has 1 driver and 6 seats available. So your family outing, right, requires 2 taxis. It's not just double the cost, it's double the practicalities. Even if I can pay 2 taxi fares or 2 Grab fares, right, it is just not practical to have more than 4 children even.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Also Consider This. Now, this particular episode is a little bit different because we have guests, and it was a bit of a little discussion where we follow up on our previous episode where we talked about the TFR and how to boost the TFR. And to do that, we asked a few friends.
We hijacked a get-together with our friends, and then we just spontaneously put them in front of the camera.
Yes, we not only hijacked our friends during a gathering, we also hijacked the venue.
We kind of ambushed them with this whole idea that you're going to appear on a podcast today.
Yes, and thanks to them for being very game for either letting us have the venue or being part of the whole recording.
Yeah,
and there are quite some perspectives that they shared about their journey from pre-fatherhood to current fatherhood. And I think it lends a very real dimension to this whole TFR argument for people to consider.
Yeah, I think because what we have been speaking in the previous episode was a bit, some would say, theoretical.
A bit abstract.
Yeah, it comes also with the... We kind of spoke at it from an outsider's point of view, kind of thing, like a viewing glass looking in kind of.
Especially when we are not fathers.
Yeah.
So therefore, please listen and then share your thoughts as well. And I think these thoughts in the conversation probably add something to what you may want to say about this whole conversation about boosting the TFR.
Hi, I'm Ronald. I am 39. I have 2 boys, one 3 and one 6.
Okay, Mark, how about you?
I have 1 offspring, aged 2 and 7 months.
Okay, so Kofong, please make a declaration, right, as to how many children you have.
I'm currently dating. I'm not married yet. So I have no children.
Okay.
You know that for sure? Is that...
yeah, I know that for sure.
Okay.
That I do not have many children.
Okay. Now I'm using this opportunity, right, to announce something.
Yes.
I have a kid on the way.
Congratulations.
See, that was what I was saying.
Done.
That was what it wasn't that was
Yeah,
that was
that's
my...
the reason why I'm so pissed off that Benny's not in this video.
Yeah, Benny is off camera, but
our host of the venue is not on camera, but we thank him very much for allowing us to barge into the space.
Also, when he sent that WhatsApp message, that was my implication. What? That's why I thought he was implying. What?
Oh, wow!
Because he had made a point that I was like, what, the father of the youngest child, which seems to imply that this age hierarchy thing was a feature of tonight's
I see.
Yes.
Uber.
Yes, the
Yeah.
review is kind of planned. Yeah, it was also using this opportunity to sort of record your reactions, because they can only have one first ever child.
Too bad.
Yeah, that
Sorry,
is
we
true.
are rarely surprised by anything, man. But congratulations.
Congratulations.
So we actually have a spectrum of
Are you just gonna leave it there now? You're not gonna like say when coming?
September 2026.
Congratulations.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that right? Do you know that? Sorry, I'm derailing this.
Let's go for it, man.
It's okay.
So statistically, right, September is the most populous month.
Yeah.
I know that because my child was born in September.
Okay.
I do know that as a
Yeah.
fact because a lot of my friends in church are born in
Yes,
September.
and it's because of Christmas copulation.
Is
And those-
it?
Yeah, you count?
But it's also the time of the year, right, where people are most relaxed, especially in our context. Like Singapore is stressed all year round, but December is just a little bit less stressed than the rest of the year.
It is true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It is true.
Like all the corporate folk have a bit less stresses to
Yes, it is true.
like keep them away from home and copulation.
Is there a personal?
Not in my case lah.
Okay.
Yeah, but because I'm not a corporate rat lah. But the point is that like it's generally I think a more relaxing time of the year. Yeah, so I'm not surprised that if like September is the peak season for childbirths in Singapore.
And not
Yeah.
to mention the process to actually conceive can be quite stressful.
Let's not get so graphic over here, please.
It's okay.
Yeah, this is a PG-13
Alright,
podcast.
okay.
PG-13-ish lah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's 30.
Okay, now the point is, we have a spectrum of like parents and dads and dads to be here, right? And this conversation may be a bit skewed towards the male gender, but this is like a bros meetup gathering, and we're using this opportunity to record a pod just to try to capture what things are like and some thoughts for the day.
Say
Right?
from a male perspective.
Yeah, from a male perspective,
Yeah,
lah.
from male
and
perspective.
particularly a millennial male perspective,
Mm.
because I think when the government put out statements about asking Singaporeans to have more children, right? The only age groups that can really do that right now are probably like older Gen Zs and millennials,
Mm.
right? So we're using this opportunity to sort of like get, you have kids who are almost primary school, newborn, more or less newborn, expecting, wannabe, right? So I just want to have a sense of Confirm likes kids, let's be honest.
Yeah, he does
Confirm
like
likes
kids.
kids,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah,
he's
that's
a,
a
good way to
he-
say
he's
it,
a wannabe, right?
He's gonna have kids
Wannabe
for sure,
gonna
yeah.
be has been. Let's like through a few questions, right? Let's see, like share some perspectives as to like how we can or cannot contribute to the total fertility rate in Singapore, right? So my first question after the introduction, right, is did you feel truly ready to become a father, or did you just decide it was time?
I don't think you can ever be ready. You may be ready in terms of financial, or you think that okay, you have this certain X amount of money inside your savings. You think okay, maybe financially ready, but to be parenting, I don't think anybody is ever ready to be parents.
But in the sense that like if before you had your first son, right?
Yeah.
What was the thought process? Like there must have been some sort of hesitancy, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like you
The
want to
inertia,
make sure
yeah.
that we are in an environment where we are constantly worried about whether we have enough money to feed our kids,
Yeah, for sure.
feed ourselves,
Yeah.
feed our flat.
Yeah.
For some people feed the cat.
Yeah.
Things like that. So it's like, do you think that these are reasons that we rationalize, or are they very real?
Responsibly, they should be real. You cannot. I mean, logically, you cannot have kids without having the financial ability to support. Otherwise, the kid comes out to be a additional liability for the family. On a very serious note, just over the Chinese New Year, we went to Malaysia. There's a case, I think in Pahang, there's a femicide that killed his wife, killed his two kids, 1, 2, 1, 4, I think 2 girls. Tried to kill his brother-in-law, I think. The brother-in-law survived, of course, but at the end of it, they say it's due to financial issues, financial pressures. So, actual fact, financial capability, I think it's a very real thing.
Oh damn! It went dark very quickly.
Yeah,
man.
sorry, it's true. But that's the first thing that came on my mind when I heard the news. Like, oh, this is real, man. Because as a parent, financial ability to raise the kid well, it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
And I think because now your first son is really 6, the second one is like 3, right?
Yeah.
So basically, you've already gone through one or two humps. What would you say about yourself like 7 years, 8 years ago? Like if you go back and talk about yourself, right? Do you think the concerns are extremely real, or do you think it's like you were, or there's some level of like you trying to convince yourself or trying to shield yourself away from that fear that you have?
The inertia, I guess, is part of it. Some part of the argument maybe it's due to inertia, but also due to practicality. But the inertia is no doubt is there. Maybe a bit of it subconsciously becomes an excuse for yourself to delay or so on and so forth. Yeah.
Let's move on to Mark. So Mark, what do you feel about it? Because I think your pregnancy happened a bit faster than Ronald's. Between marriage, like the wedding and the it's not immediate lah, not on the night lah, but it's
Not
like,
his pregnancy, his wife's pregnancy.
your first child's conception happened a little bit later, but not so long, the gap. So like what were the hesitancies, or what are the fears, or what are the concerns that you had before you all went for a kid?
I think the main issue to that was the whole process of just getting married to begin with, right? Because I've been in this relationship for like 20 years now, and so that's a really long time. And so when when you date when you're young, you don't really think about necessarily the long term, so it's always the next day. And I suppose when you extrapolate that over 15-20 years, it can still be very much the next day lah. And for us, we weren't really the kind of people to make these kind of ultra long-term plans anyway. But once we had eventually gotten married, I think I remember quite clearly having the thought process that many people try for children and then they never get them anyway, right? So I was like, yeah, it's just see how things, not so much see how things go, but just let things be, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, that's also fine. So it wasn't really a super well thought out process in terms of considering many
Factors in that
material
sense, yeah.
factors maybe, but I was just let's just go with the flow and see what happens after that.
Okay.
And as you say, it came really quickly, so describe Sarah.
Yeah, but this sounds like it sounds like a situation where you have less hesitancy than some people would have, like compared to myself lah.
Yeah, so why don't you
Yeah.
share what your hesitancy?
Yeah, so
then we
like
can respond
I've
to
been
that.
married for like 2 to 3 years really, and for me it was like, long term, whenever my wife asked me if I wanted to have kids with her, I always said yes, but just not now. Like it's always been something that I always envisioned in my future, but it's not something that you want to execute immediately. Yeah, there's always things that there's a million and one things that help me back. Like, can I afford it? Am I emotionally mature enough to handle another human being? Like sometimes when obviously when you are in a couple, regardless of whether you are married or not, you got to handle the ups and downs, right? And that sometimes already drives me a bit tired. And then like, oh, how about handling another one that you can't even talk words with, right? And of course, I see you guys having kids also, and of course there are the joys of it. And naturally, I am not a very kids person. I mean, compare him, Kok Fong, with me, right? How often do you see me playing with your kids? I'm not naturally a kids person, and my wife was actually very concerned. Yeah, but I always tell her that it's different when it's your own lah. Yeah, and I always maybe it's something that I feel that I'll pick up along the way, and I also believe that there is never a situation where you are truly ready, as you said, right? I logically get it, but there's still an emotional tug at me that sort of holds me back and say that hey, it's like maybe not now, and practically speaking, in terms of the income, the finances, and whether you're able to do it, frankly, the past 1.5, 2 years of my life before that, it was very unstable. I was like in between job, freelance, all sorts of things. And frankly, I feel that the biggest thing that makes me get very emotional when the government talks about TFR. I feel that for the past year or a half, 2 years before we conceived, my biggest concern is I always had this lack of optimism for the future. Because when the income is so unstable and things are so like, and then you have your own personal instabilities already, and then you turn on the news and all the news that you hear, regardless of who is the president in the US or wherever, there's always some instability, and the last 2-3 years has been even worse. Then you combine with your own personal lack of optimism for the future, it's very hard to say that, okay, I know that even if I work extremely hard, the next 5 years I can pull through. I think that's the biggest concern. Like the biggest word I will always use, I tend to think of is optimism. If I'm optimistic that I can at least, even if I work to the bone, I can still pull through and everybody still is kind of okay, I think that's enough. I don't think my partner or my future kids will begrudge me for not being a rich man and give them all the luxuries in the world. But at the very least, I don't want to make people suffer for no good reason. Yeah, and that's the reason why I find that like the concerns that people have that stop them from either have children or more children, and the very fatherhood statements that lecture people about having more children in Singapore, I find that you need to sort of understand people not from the monetary side of things, but also understand that how do people think about their future, right? It's like we see more and more rankings. Singapore is the best at this, best at that, best at happiness, even though we know the happiness rankings sometimes don't really reflect what we feel inside. But the TFR to me is like, it is actually the true indicator of how well we're doing. Because if we are feeling okay financially, not rich, but okay, I'm going to make do, I'm going to be fine. And if I want to spend time with my wife and my kids and eat dinner, I'll be fine. If I want to like knock off at even say 6:30, 7 o'clock and go home and have dinner and you know, be with my kids for revision and I can make it happen, that'll be fine. Then I think the probability of me wanting to have kids in the future and having it earlier will be easier. Yeah, because I have so many concerns. Maybe I think a lot, and I believe I'm not the only person who thinks a lot. Right?
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of this. There's this TikTok account that I've stumbled across quite frequently recently. It's called Singapore POV. So it's like this guy who like does like comics lah. He's a bit like woke salaryman, but he compiles like stories of millennials and like young adults. I'm not sure whether he's a Gen Z but it's like millennial and young adults, Gen Z and millennial experiences about like adulting, right? And I think a lot of his stories kind of circle around like the marriage question. How is he gonna settle down, about getting your first BTO flat? And then I think one about having children, the one that really left a mark on me is that because I need to plan for a kid, the story goes like, because I need to plan for a kid, then we need to like work longer. I need to get that next promotion. But then the problem is that if I'm going to get the next promotion, it means that my JD is going to change, and then I actually have less overall time to spend with my kid. Then that question becomes yes, you can term it like a dilemma, or it can even become like then what's the point, right? Like I spend more time in the office, but I end up spending less time with my kid. But then I need to spend more time in the office to be able to afford having a kid.
It's like spending more time in the office so that you can spend even more time in the office later, so that you can afford to have a kid. It's like I don't know whether is it a vicious cycle in some sense. It also kind of makes me see like, it just doesn't make sense, right? I want to ask you, as somebody who is wanting a child in the future, what do you feel about what we said overall so far, like the pre-child, pre-conception sort of worries and
I
all
think
that?
it's not just perspectives from you guys because a lot of my peers right now already have kids, and I think the general perspective is that yes, it is tough, it is difficult. The sane, for the sake of sanity, most people will tell me that yeah lah, think twice lah, right? But then at the same time, those who are really for it really tell you that yeah, because of their kids, it really changed their perspective towards like life in general, whether for the good or for the bad. That's up to individual lah, but at least there's this idea that it cannot be from merely, you cannot analyze it merely from a economic or a social or a public policy perspective, because no sane person will think in that perspective to say that, oh, because government say
We need to force multiply, so I need to
Yeah.
produce more soldiers for the
nobody
SAF.
will in the sane mind will think that way, right? But more often than not, people come to a decision because something is triggered. I do know of two of my friends. They got married. They wasn't really very they didn't really entertain the idea of having kids. But I think towards the end, like something just made them rethink, like, okay, yeah, what is the sum of my life, right? Like, what am I really working for? If it's just for myself, then yeah, it doesn't make sense for me to have kids. But rather it's because there's an idea of legacy, right? That's why we have children. That's why we call it like you're passing on your legacy. That's why you have children. It's part of that concept. And then there's also the concept of children also kind of brings joy in that sense. Even though, yeah, the other aspects of going into taking care of one, raising him or her up, it's a whole other ball game. And like what Ronald has spoken at the start was like, you have to do your sums before you, especially in a very practical society like Singapore. But at the same time, there's this idea that like you can't measure all these things lah.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, Ronald always jokes to us about like don't have kids lah, don't get married lah.
Yeah, every time
know, like, it's
every
like-
time he in a chat
Yeah.
group when like certain things happen, then it's like, then when he so-called like complains, I put it in inverted commas because
Yeah,
we don't
because-
really think it as
Yeah, because we know it's like a bit of venting out lah. But the person who most likely will post a picture of like himself having fun with the kids, right? Actually,
is the one that complains the
yeah,
most.
complain the most lah. and his missus, yeah, like, and I think therefore like there's always going to be, what I would say about this fear thing, right, is that my level of fear actually never changed post conception.
Okay. I think it would have went up even further in
No,
that sense.
because I still have to worry whether I can afford to pay for the pram lah, the car seat lah, the changing table, the cot, all the million and one things you gotta buy, right? Yeah, but it's just that the fear, instead of a fear you're not acting upon, it becomes a fear that you're acting upon. Yeah, and this is actually, I want to use this to segue into our next segment, right? Which I find that once conception happened, the thing that changed in me is that, yes, I want to work with a purpose in mind. But sometimes the slog to work that extra hour to make a little bit more money comes in because I gotta feed this new thing. I gotta pay for the damn bills.
Yeah, responsibility.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the each gynae visit is like $200, $300 minimum.
yeah.
It starts from there, right?
Oh,
and, then
yeah.
and then it's like, okay, if I push for this extra bit, it pays for like the next session, or it will help with some other thing that I need to pay for. At least mentally, you can start equating these things, and therefore, this I would like to segue to our next segment, which is what actually happened or what actually changed you once fatherhood came about to you. Yeah, let's start with Mark this time
At
around.
this point, Mark, the great socialist, steps in and says, actually, the government healthcare system is more than sufficient. All right. And we were whole process, we were at like KKH. So every gynae visit also go KKH, and then every time the doctor different. So you get a range, a palette of perspectives and personalities.
A tasting menu.
And I would like to argue the fact that I think is totally sufficient. Now, I know like a lot of the things that we are saying is evidence more of aspirational middle class society, where there's suddenly a lot of things that we want. Like just in a way, the things that we were talking about, right? Like the pram that you buy and stuff like that. So what I would always say to my wife's annoyance is that we evolved out of jungles and caves, right? And for sure, infant mortality was very high, lah. But they didn't have prams either. And then if you don't have it, you'll find a way to survive, lah. So that's one point to it. But what was your
No,
bigger
what
question?
What changed you after like once fatherhood, even as post conception? What changed in you? Like what's the difference between you now and you 2-3 years ago?
I think the funny thing is that obviously we've known each other for a very long time, so we always discuss these kind of things anyway. And when you are without responsibility of another person, then everything is just social theory, right? And you talk about things, it's all theoretical. But then when you have a child, it's a moment where you have to put your convictions to the test, and to see like, oh, do I really believe in the theories that I used to believe in? Because it's quite easy to give in, right? Because you say like, okay, now that we have a child, then I mellow, or I become more conservative in these ways. So that's one way of thinking. But now you have a life experiment. It's for you to
Shape and mold.
not say shape and mold, but it really tests how you truly think about the world, I think, and that's when your true colors really come out.
Like is that you? Are you referring to things like how you, for example, regulate emotions because you can't be, the kid is crying at 2 a.m. in the morning or something, and you can't be grouchy because the kid is actually the one that has the right to be grouchy and you can't be grouchy, for example.
I think that's an interesting point in the sense like when you talk about being ready, and often we talk about finance and we talk about the infrastructure of your life being ready, but I think a lot of that is emotional infrastructure as well, because what I think the main problem is for a lot of us is that maybe for whatever reason we don't feel ready to become parents because we never received that kind of parental either guidance or acceptance or what that we wanted and we never had. One of the things that I wanted to do in the process of becoming a parent was maybe I should go for therapy. For one thing or another, I never really either had the courage or the time or the hardworkingness. What's the word?
Or the bother.
To actually go and do it. But I think that was something that I should probably have done anyway, or what I wanted to do. Because for me, what was interesting was I always wanted a daughter. So I like a bunch of girl names. I know if I had a daughter, what the name of this daughter would have been. 100% it was set. But then we had a son, and then there was this point where we're doing all the ultrasounds, and I was quite gender disappointed by this actually. Yeah.
Like the only Asian father I know that is
That doesn't
disappointed.
want a son.
Yeah, so
that
then
didn't want
I
a
was
son,
like,
yeah.
why am I thinking like that, right? And I realized that maybe if I think about it, like I didn't know how to relate to a son, maybe because in a way, then I'm a bit more sensitive. That's this disclosure, right? I'm a bit more of a sensitive child. Then I felt like, because my father was not a sensitive person in that way, that I didn't know how to relate to a son because I didn't. But with my mom, it was a different kind of relationship. So I thought maybe if I had a daughter, I probably would be able to understand that a bit better. And that was the reality of the situation. So I think preparation is true. You need all these other things, but a lot of it is we got to question ourselves and say, what are we lacking as human beings? And then how do we make up for it? And I think having a child is a good way to have that little bit of self-therapy also. Not that the child is a conduit, but just as a reason for you to improve yourself actually.
And just to probe a bit further, right? What sort of what's the conduit? What did the conduit do for you? What do you feel has changed in you?
I feel like the minute he appeared, and I know you're talking about the zygote era, but in the
Zygote era?
in
Wow,
the
what a term.
post-zygote era,
That's the next Taylor Swift album.
I know, and so I realized that you could almost go back in time. Because when you look at the way your parents would interact with your kid, and now it's their grandchild, right? And you would realize, there was me, right? And you could say, that's why I'm like that, or that's why I'm screwed up in this way, or that's why maybe not, maybe I'm not screwed up in this way. And then you can see all these little dynamics happen. And I took that for both good and bad. You got to learn, right? You keep the good things and
I
then
mean,
you
it
try
must
to
be a
remember bad
really
things.
surreal, in a twisted kind of manner.
It is. It's really like you looking at it happen. You looking at it
it's like
unfold
in front of you, yeah.
before your eyes. I think it's a very interesting experience, though, which I hope you get to experience.
But you know what's the funny thing? You said that you thought you needed therapy before you became like that.
Yeah, but then I'm very Gen Z lah, so I
but no,
believe
but
that everybody
right now-
needs therapy lah.
Don't you find the irony is that now you are going through a sort of a therapy that is changing you in a way for the better?
Yeah, so I think that the thing is that most people's idea about the whole thing about themselves as people is that they are fully formed and not bad. It's like, for example, the thing about hitting kids. I'm not here to pontificate about it one way or the other. But then often you will hear people say, "Oh, but last time my father whacked me, I'm still okay, what?" You know? And
Which is a very millennial.
yeah. So people seem to think that they are okay, you see. And I'm not just talking about hitting, it could be a whole bunch of other things. But people often say, "Oh, I'm fine, what?" And they never really question whether they are truly fine or not. So I think in this way, right, we pass a lot of generational trauma down, right? And so I think part of the infrastructure of being a parent is that you got to question yourself, like, what's wrong with me? And how do I make sure that the trauma that you receive as a person is not passed down to the next generation?
Yeah, because I noticed that myself, because just to be very honest, also because I'm going through like work, work to be done,
I
right?
thought there was another disclosure.
No.
Not today, sir.
Not today, sir. Yeah. Which it kind of also made me have a lot of thoughts and a lot of reflection was that, you kind of like it goes back to the idea that, we are fine, but then after that, if you really hyper focus on certain things or you really zoom in on things, you really realize that actually a lot of these things you are not actually fine, or it's actually not the best. But at the same time, you also have to do it in a lens of compassion where you can't really like blame your parents, because your parents can only do it in the same way, the best way that they know how, right?
Neither can you blame yourself also, by the way.
Yeah. So
I don't think it's about blame lah, but you can't change anything, right? But
So-
you can change yourself a little bit.
so in the
that's
same
idea
way,
lah.
then I would guess like being a father, there's also some form of like being a bit more compassionate on yourself. Like even though you may have like certain ideal standards that you might have wanted.
Okay, I have to say this because this really struck a nerve for me. The main thing that had changed for me since conception is that I really, really had to learn how to let shit go.
Yeah.
Like because of the nature of pregnancy, you just gotta let things slide. Because like the person, like the wife,
how many months? 2 months.
three. So like, like things sometimes things, bad mood day or whatever, not right. And then sometimes you just gotta let it go. And I just gotta dig in and just let it go. And I think that is like the main thing. And sometimes things just some shit don't matter that much at times. That's what I feel is the big change for me. Like, is there really a point to winning this argument? Is there really a point to like think that this argument, if I lose it, means that the next few ones I'm gonna lose the same way, because like the point is already made. The line is drawn. Now not so much, right? Like just like sometimes it's just, yes, I may be right to say that you shouldn't do this or that, or I say that this is a very unfair statement for you to make, but sometimes I just got to just back away and be pissed off for a while, punch a pillow and come back. I think that's so far the biggest shift in me. Yeah, but still stressful lah. See my hair white already.
Oh yeah, damn right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ronald actually hasn't answered the...
Yeah, Ronald has answered the question. He lost hair, now he's growing it back.
Oh yeah, that's right. Modern medicine, number one.
Magic.
It's to be honest, once with the kid, a lot of things, the worldview, a lot of things they do change. But I guess maybe sometimes I will start to overthink a little bit about just because of the kid, for the kid. Maybe because like you worry the health of the kid, or will this lead to something else? Or will this going to be okay for the kid? Is this okay? Is it fine? Like there was a case. We went to Bishan Park. Then we
Somehow I knew this story was coming.
yeah. It's always this thing because I
The turtle story.
yeah, it's the turtle story. It's the clearest indication to me that I have transcended from this mindset of I don't give two rats but about like that lah, okay lah. But then after it becomes something else, oh wow, this one is quite serious.
What's the story? What's the story? I don't remember this or heard or don't remember of this story.
The gist is this: we went to Bishan Park. Then there's the river, right? The river, there's turtles. Then we were looking at the turtles. My son, the elder one, he put his finger out. Then the turtle bit the finger. Then the first thing that came to my mind is this going to escalate into something more serious? Now it's easy to think, or maybe when you don't have kids, you really you don't get that kind of feeling. But once you have kids, you get the worry that is this going to end up with him having to amputate his finger?
Okay.
And they're going to be germs.
Like the worst case scenario, cascade kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And then the other indicator that came to me was I was self-aware of was when I went to watch this show, The Patriot, the Mel Gibson one.
That's a really old show.
Yeah,
man.
it's really old show.
Went to watch The Patriot.
I don't know why it appeared on my YouTube again, the clips of it lah.
Go, okay.
Yeah, so it just popped out. Then
The algorithm has its magic.
right. Then I clicked on it. Because of whatever reasons, I clicked on it. Then there was this part where Mel Gibson's son, not Heath Ledger, his other son died trying to protect Heath Ledger. And then Mel Gibson went to open up a box that he told his kids never to touch. Then he opened his box, it was tomahawks and all that stuff, something that he brought from his the wars against the French and the American Indians. And he went apeshit crazy on the British troops. He went to kill, and the last British soldier that he went to kill, he used the hot tomahawks and went all butcher-like on him. Then somehow...
Spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah. Well, if you watched it, that's like 20, 30 years ago, man. So it's that idea that without kids, you won't understand the anger or the hatred. But with kids, maybe you understand, he wants to avenge his kid. He's angry with whoever did it. Not necessarily the guy. It's Jason Isaacs, whose character who was doing it. But he was so angry with the British, he just massacred every single one. So I understood, where the anger came from. But I figured I understood it because now I'm a dad. So that's where probably Mel Gibson's character did that lah.
Before you,
There's a
I
disclaimer.
haven't.
No
Yeah.
turtles were harmed in the
Crazy.
making of this episode.
But before we say
No,
anything,
we didn't. I wanted to turn the turtle into Gui Ling Gao lah, for God's sakes. But of course, I couldn't lah.
yeah,
And
but
he will
before
come after me.
we all continue, I just want to make an observation.
Yeah.
I realized Ronald's, all his anecdotes very dark one.
It is. Maybe
You realize?
maybe if it's not dark enough, right, it wouldn't trigger something in me at a certain point.
Or is it that becoming a dad made you really think
You
very
really
dark?
go
maybe
down,
Yeah.
everything just keeps escalating. Like you think of the worst case scenario, that kind of thing.
Okay, wow.
Actually, I think we are all just products of our culture, and that's why.
Could be
Because another zygote era
Post-zygote
realization.
era,
No, zygote era,
Zygote era.
realization is that when you tell people that you are expecting, right, then you notice that in Singapore people always come up to you and say, good luck. Yeah. All the best. You're gonna need it. Sleep. You're gonna need it. That's it. That's it. Wow, shag lah, bro. But then because in my work I get to meet people all around the world, right? So especially when I was meeting like American people or European people, they'll be like, we are so happy for you. You must be so happy. And so it got me questioning, like, how come our default reaction is this
good luck.
cynicism, right?
It's like gone lah.
Yeah, and then
Your
when
life
it's
will
other
change.
people, it's like it's so positive, this reaction, and maybe I should try and be positive like that, because the default is actually, when people say it's for you to say that.
I agree with that
Yeah.
observation because everyone keeps talking about like a child being a gift, a kid, baby being a gift and all that, right? But I think it's like everyone keeps talking as if like the baby is a bombshell like that.
Yeah, so I think that's a very cultural thing, lah, and that's something that we are all cultural
And
products of.
actually, I realize it is not even culturally like that. Even the Chinese is happy, but it is specifically very Singaporean to say that, oh, gonna.
Shag lah, bro.
Yeah, shag bro. Yeah,
Shacks, yeah.
it's
Yeah. I think because like we okay, to be fair, I think we're leaning back to the same old tropes, which is like we're really lacking sleep generally in Singapore. The people, the surveys say that they got the
the
least
high
sleep.
stress,
Yeah, and then it's like
no work-life balance.
yeah, so it's like your default state is really stressed, and then it's like you got another one to add to the stress, then shag lah, bro. You know that kind of thing. So I mean, this is it's quite interesting to that you guys observe that actually, how come like generally we view this as a shag lah, bro, and that also fits into the culture generally as to what we see having children as to be.
Generational trauma.
Yeah, like we seem to the responses this time round when because we started talking about fertility and having children is for National Day rallies since 1984. It's like more than 40 years of nagging about having children already, and we're still nagging about having
We
children.
went through 4 PMs talking about TFR.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, like why do we still have this shag bro mentality of it? Because we already done talking about it in terms of money, right? As you said, like if you want to have your dedicated gynae to go through that 9 months with you, it costs a bit more. But if you went through the public healthcare system, it's not as strenuous on the finances and all that, and there are always options for you to do things in a more cost-effective manner. And then that leads back to what I feel like is a question of like, hey, why do you have this problem? Is because people are not mentally ready. And to go a bit deeper, right? I want to ask Ronald, like, because Ronald, amongst the four of us, you're the only one with a second kid. So did the second one change you further?
No, actually not really. It gave me the first one gave me preparation in terms of what to expect, what to do, what not to do, how to take care of the kids, so on. So for all intents and purposes, it was actually easier. Because you're not the newbie, you're not the green one anymore. But for the overall process, it wasn't as hard as the first one, in my perspective. Everyone seemed to have gotten the process of how to take care of the kid down. Then everyone's a little bit less stressed. You know what you're supposed to expect, what you are going to go through, the lack of sleep, the waking up at night, so on and so forth. So I had all my shows prepared at night, just carry the kid. I know what time I need to go, 2 hours sleep, then 2 hours wake up, or that kind of thing. It's not as shock as the first one. The first one, I think, probably was a very huge culture shock. Like you think, maybe it's going to be okay, I can still sleep for a little bit, but the unpredictability of kids and how they behave, it goes away with the second one. For me, at least, I know roughly what to expect. It was not as bad. So
it's like playing the same Call of Duty game again on a higher difficulty or lower difficulty or whatever it is. It's just like replaying a game.
Yeah. On New Game Plus. If you get it, you get the same kind of experience, your same kind of gear, whatever. But you start the whole process over.
You keep your experience points.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Your skill points and all that nonsense. Yeah, you do. Yeah, exactly.
So because I also do hear of people with like second child or second or third kid, then they start to also. Some people start to have more worries because, firstly, the higher stakes, you have more things to lose in that sense. But there's also the other, there's other concerns like, the idea of harmony. Like the first one, whether is it, how is he gonna treat the titi or the mei mei, that kind of. Those things comes in, then
jealousy. It's a thing. It's a thing. So the preparation for the first one, you have to tell them you have a younger brother coming. You're the older brother now. You have to take care of Titi. You have to, you have to step up. You have to maybe give in to Titi sometimes. Not be so jealous of the time that we spend with Titi more because Titi is younger. He needs more care and so on. That one is a true thing. I've seen some friends of mine. They say that the younger one is because it's younger, you need more time to take care of. The older one does get jealous. Then the older one acts out, and it becomes a thing. It's the harmony thing. Yes, the one definitely did cross our minds. Yeah, and of course money lah. Yeah, it's not cheap
Do you
Kids in
feel
Singapore.
that in your, even let's just look back a little bit, right? Do you feel that even in your own life, right, when you had another sibling in your life, things sort of changed for you also?
Oh, for sure. For sure. The amount of resources we have are finite, so everything becomes diverted. It becomes one becomes two, then the things we get is always is less. The attention or time, the tangible, the intangible things from the parents, the attention, so on, or the money that you have. Maybe you used to be able to get 2 toys, now you only get 1. It's all very real. Yeah, it's all very real. I'm actually aware of some of people who say they really just, like c'est la vie, or like qui sera sera, if it happens, it happens. If they are harmony together, they're okay. If they're not harmony, we're going to leave it. Or we have money, no man, God will provide. Different ways of thinking about it. Yeah, there is.
It kind of goes back to like the personality of the parents in that sense.
I think so. I like just now. I really do overthink stuff. I think to the end, and then the worst case scenario. If it doesn't reach the worst case scenario, that's great. It's wonderful. But I think about it, the worst case scenario, and what I need to do if it does reach the worst case scenario. So plan for the worst, but I pray that it doesn't end up that way.
I'm very curious, right? Because as somebody who is expecting not yet a father, I'm very curious, right? You probably would have had some idea of what fatherhood would be like for you before the birth of the first child.
Yeah, it's completely different.
The expectations.
It's very different.
Do they match in reality, or like?
Absolutely not. Oh my God, absolutely not.
Describe it.
So one thing is for both of us, you thought maybe okay, we still have your own personal time. Maybe you can still go and watch your own TV. You can still go and work out.
Have me time kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, but when the kid comes out, right, the me time totally goes out the window. Firstly, you need to take care of the kid lah. Then whether you have helper, whether you have additional assistants, that one it's good. No, then you own self come and jaga own self lah. After that is the body, your physicality of your body. Your wife is damn shacked out after the birth. Either it's a natural birth or C-sec. Then the emotions are cranky. I think the postpartum thing is a very real thing. How different women have different reactions to it. Some have depression, some do not. Some have diabetes, some do not. Then how everybody needs to deal with it is also very different. For us, huge change. So whatever we thought and whatever was actual, huge difference. Yeah.
How about like how you think you react to situations that you imagine in the future? So like, is that vastly different also?
Quite, yes. Yeah. When I at least from my own personal perspective, how I thought I would deal with something, and how I actually had to deal with something, and how something the thing that I thought would work and things that I thought would not work, very different. Very, very different. So like things that go through my mind, but or maybe like D-Day, for example, the plans that you go in, but when you actually have troops hit the beach, it's a completely different story, something like that. Yeah. So you do things a lot on the fly now.
Now I want to make some statement and further the original question of how it has changed for you, right?
Yeah.
I want to make a statement of my observation of you as a friend, and you can tell me whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
I find that the biggest change in you is that because you have to hold things up, especially financially for the kids, it makes you more willing to take on the early hours and the late hours and all the nonsense that you have to do for your business. It's like you don't seem to complain as much about having to do all that stuff for your work as much as you used to. That's my observation.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Just found something else to complain about.
Something big came out, right? Yeah, it's yeah.
You got limited resources.
quota
You,
for
you can
complaining
only
has been
complain
diverted.
about
certain
one thing,
things.
right? Yeah, exactly. So the bigger grab is there to take my attention. But you're right lah. In a way, like you said earlier on, there is always that certain thing that you work towards. Like you work this one, you get. You pay for certain things like diapers or milk powder, or you pay for a trip, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So I suppose the responsibility is also very real. The shoulders get really heavy because if you don't do it, then how are you how are you going to get your resources for this and that? Let's say the kid needs to go and see the pediatrician. Wow, those guys charge you a leg and a foot, man, for one session. So
Well, for a start, to having to need to go there is really a pain.
yeah,
Like the idea of having a kid in like illness
In
or
agony and in the middle of
Yes.
the night kind of thing. lah.
the feeling will kill you. You feel so helpless that you cannot help the kid. But at a certain point, you get used to that feeling. Then you trust in the kid's immunity system, and also you learn to trust. For me, like you learn to trust in God, like you trust. Okay, so like just now you said you learn to let stuff slide at a certain point. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, because okay, just a point of relatability, right?
Mm.
So recently I bought a little, because my baby's gonna be in the year of the horse, right? So I
Yeah.
bought a little baby soft toy horse.
Cute.
And when I work a few extra hours, right?
Yeah.
It looks at me and I'm reminded of what I'm doing.
That's right.
So
yeah,
then I like,
yeah.
macam Ronald, wake up at 4 a.m. to go to the shop at 5 to open shop, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, it reminds me of that.
yeah. There's a certain how do I put it? There is a certain appreciation. No, it's not appreciation. There's a
Impetus.
certain for what you do. So you have a reason to do it.
Mm.
It's not just money. You have
There's something intrinsic lah.
exactly, yeah. Instinct, paternal instinct. I don't know how to put to you. Parental instinct. Yeah, to provide. Yeah, that means you're a good dad. Well done.
Don't assume yet.
Oh,
Yeah, as you just said, what you imagine to be and what you actually come out totally not the same one.
yeah, that's true.
You
Yeah.
should insert a PSA that postpartum depression can affect male people as
Yes, yeah,
Is
you
it?
are right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know
Yes.
that.
It can.
well. So
it can.
it's
yeah.
very important to know this because
Yeah.
most people don't know this.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can.
Also, not to diminish, I assume not to diminish the stresses that the mother will face also.
for sure.
I think both will face stresses
Yeah,
of their own.
For sure.
There's a new human being in your life, so if you really need to seek help, please seek help.
Yeah, it's stress for everybody. It's just that most people think that PPD is like a female thing. Totally on the mum side, but it affects men too. So your hormonal balances change, and you start crying for no reason. That's me lah.
You start crying for no reason.
But I've always been crying for no reason lah. But things like that exacerbate the situation.
I would like to do a similar type of question to you, Mark. That's why I gave Ronald. I observed that you seem more grounded as a person since your child came
Really,
about.
I thought we can be more extreme actually.
No. As in, like, going about your business, right? It's no longer like airy fairy. It's like, oh, I like your approach to things seem more like
Less laissez-faire.
yeah, more directional. More, you tend to take things by the horns more than you used to.
But I don't know whether that's parenthood or is it just age. Because I think that both they could be one or the other. It's very hard to attribute it directly to parenthood.
Yeah, but
like
then-
not giving a shit about what people think about you could just be a 40-year-old guy's thing.
Yeah, but the thing is that, like, that's one. But the thing is, things like going about your business, how you take on more jobs, how you approach,
Make certain
yeah,
choices.
how you
Okay,
approach.
So I think that one of the interesting things, especially from my perspective, because if your regular listeners don't know, then my life is like
non-structured to say the
non-structured.
least.
Okay, that's a good way of saying it. Non-formalized lah.
Non-corporate red lah.
Yeah. Okay. Got no fixed income.
Actually,
or whatever
all of us here are
Ah,
non,
okay,
we
okay,
are
okay.
all not corporate rats.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
you're
but
right.
so then it ties back to what you were trying to say earlier also, right? Because then it's not just about finance, it's about what kind of lifestyle you want to have, like how close you want to be your kids, like how much time do you want to spend with them, and so on and so forth, right? So for us, the first 18 months of his life was just we totally took care of ourselves, you know. So that means no infant care and not much parental support, to be honest. Maybe a day a week or whatever, but then we really had to adjust the timetables to make that work lah. And because she got a bit of work from home, that's made things okay, but it's really hard to do both also. And because I get to choose my schedule, then I have to give out a lot of work for this to happen. So ironically, you work less, but you work more in the other direction as well. So then you have to like work more for your child, but then you make less money as a whole.
But you're also more selective and more directional, so to speak.
I mean, so the funny thing is that after I got married, right, and then my wife said, actually, I didn't know you're a workaholic. Because maybe I like to portray the fact that I don't appear to be lah.
This is the
But
first time
actually,
I
work
hear
a lot
Mark's
now.
name and workaholic in the
Yes,
same
actually, I
sentence.
work very hard one. It's just I present the aura of a bohemian.
You do it very well to your
Yeah,
credit.
but yeah.
No, because the nature of your work, right, is like 2 a.m. suppers tend to be like a norm in your nature of your
Don't
work.
you know that
Especially,
2 a.m. is
I
like a
can hang
normal
out with
thing
you
for
at
Mark?
3 p.m. That's
and-
true, but
and
then
2
I'm still not
a.m.
working the other hours.
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel that that these things seem to happen less, and you choose.
But you know what?
Other
It's like
things are-
a part of it is like when you work, you like I mentioned already, you do meet a lot of people, and I think that you can always learn something from a lot of people. So I work with a lot of like white people. Is that politically correct?
Yeah,
white
yeah,
people,
yeah,
white
I
people
think
can
it's
I
fine.
That's what they call
okay.
it, right? Yeah.
So their mentality to child bearing all is really different. So in the end, I become a bit angmo, you know. And I think it's cool in some ways. Like for example, this French guy told me, he said, you know, you have a child now, you don't adapt to the child adapts to you. I'm like, wow, that's kind of
Can
revolutionary.
you elaborate on that?
So yeah, it's like what we're talking about with Singaporeans and stuff like that, where we feel like, oh, we have a child now, then our life has to change for the child. And the French guy said, no, just take him. And it's a very different way of living, actually, you know. It's not right or wrong, I guess, but it's just a very different way of looking at the whole shebang.
I mean, yeah, it's quite interesting because like we always think that we always imagine the structure of like after this I'm going to send it's a Saturday, we're going to go for breakfast, then going to send to these berries, then after that go for Kumon, and then go for some ballet class or whatever learning lab.
So I mean, we whittle this down to like the micro things, right? Like confinement, for example. So what I'm gonna say, I can say my wife, we go confinement, but we don't really go for confinement. We move back to my in-laws' house, and then we have 1 month over there, which is truly suffering for her, right? And then I'm like, is this a real thing anyway, confinement? But no, it's traditional medicine, right? It's just traditional practice, right? But you know, if you don't want to do it, because most of the world doesn't do it anyway, so they have certain practices, yes. So I was
Western
telling
countries don't do it.
So I was telling this Dutch guy about it. He said, sounds like torture. And then every night I would like try to sneak some food for her, like chicken rice or like McDonald's.
It's like
Because
she's visiting her in prison.
Yeah, because she's like starving. Yeah, so it's like this, right? But a lot of us feel tied to this culture or tied to the things that we know. So people will say like, oh, cannot. But you know, why cannot? That's a dangerous question to ask. So we say, oh, cannot. So this
But
cannot just pass down.
anecdotally, from what I heard, especially from relatives who live in Western cultures, right, they say that they tend to notice that Asian women who live in Western society, who when they're older, right, anecdotally they feel that they are fitter than the ladies of a similar age who had children before. So I don't know, we don't know for sure.
So we don't know, right?
And it's just a thing that since I want to err on the side of caution, I might as well just take the 4-week confinement and stay at home.
And that's what I'm saying. That's one way of looking at it. But I say we're all like, we're all products of our culture anyway. So that's one thing. But also about the way about adapting to your child. As you know, you stay in England, right? There's people give birth and then 2 days later they're all in the pub, what?
Not 2 days, but soon enough.
It's an exaggeration, but soon enough.
Yeah.
So it's just a very different mentality to the whole thing. And so as I revert back to what the French guy was saying, he said, well, you can travel? Just bring lah. Not la, he didn't say la. Just bring. Yeah, so that was a mentality that I tried to live by. So child adapt to you, you don't adapt to the child too much.
I think for me, coming back to this whole idea of like culture and like, could it also be because it's a very Singaporean thing to have everything in place,
All set up.
all set up. Whereas if you realize even in the, I don't even think it's like Singaporean. Maybe it's like even in the past.
It's Singaporean Chinese.
Yeah,
Yes, we can whittle it down to that.
yeah. Like we need.
I mean, 4 Singaporean Chinese men sitting here on the couch.
Yeah,
So,
so where like people who have went through it before, like friends who tell me like actually don't need to think too much on like if you really want to have, they said that if they go through it all over again, they would not be so
Uptight.
uptight.
Yeah.
Would you all agree?
Yeah.
but I would say that's the thing about life in general, right? Do you think that your O-level exams need to be having you being so uptight when you were 16?
Yes, that's true. But
Were
then
you
that's
uptight
where-
when you were 16?
But I think parenthood is a bit
But
different. because-
life experiences, I feel so far tend to be like that. Lots
yeah,
of
true lah.
like, do you need to sweat so much about how your army BMT life was gonna be like when before they cut your hair? You know, there's a lot of I'm not assuming that life will be easy or for me in the
But
future,
at least
but
we can go with the flow more.
yeah, it's that which goes back to that earlier point I made. Like all life is suffering, and like it's just gonna be constant fear anyway. So you might as well go for it. I
Yeah,
say.
so which is the flip side about the whole generational trauma thing. So I mean, we are all victims of it in some way. We're all products of it in some way. But yeah, I mean, there's always another way. But it does require a little bit of effort and
Yeah, on
courage
that
to
generational
take that step lah.
generational trauma point, right? It's like previously we have a society that has not like within living memory. Poverty is kind of within living memory, right? Like and therefore perhaps that's sort of leading us to think that we should have things set up first.
Like we cannot afford the child to go hungry. We can go hungry, but the child
Yeah,
cannot.
that sort of thing. Because previously, like 2 generations ago, there would have been people who just had to really dig in to find the next meal for their children.
Yeah, lah, that's all
You know?
true. But we don't live like that anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and therefore perhaps a little bit of adaptation is, and sort of like a bit of situational awareness is probably needed as well.
Yeah, I mean, you just think about it, like when we graduated, right? Okay, so for me, of course, I worked this very irregular job for a while, right? And I remember like how much money did I have at 26, 27 in my bank account. I remember after I bought my first keyboard, then I was like down to $2,000 in my bank account, right? And then I realized that my child, when he reached that age, will have a lot more money. Simply because of the investment we make him now, and then with all the things that you can invest in, or like with policies or whatever, and then by the time they mature, these people are freaking rich. And not in the sense that they will be wealthy.
not gonna be
lah.
trust fund kids lah,
Yeah,
but
of course not. Yeah, but we are very lucky. I sound like a apologist for this country at the moment, but we're very lucky to be born in a country like this, I think, where you don't have to worry about things like starvation.
Another breakthrough we had today is like we never knew that Mark can be a apologist.
No.
for
I
Singapore,
believe in the
yes.
system.
Okay. No, speaking of like setting things up, making things ideal, right? What is your ideal number of kids? And what's your ideal number of kids? And because you got 2 kids now. Ideal number of kids.
I'm done. That's it.
2. Stop at 2.
2 is good.
What's your ideal number of kids?
I'm done.
1. Stop at 1.
Yeah.
Okay, my ideal number of kids so far is 2.
Okay.
Because my
By the way, that's all still under the whatever.
stop at 2. Yeah, still under
Replacement
TF.
rate,
Yeah.
Because
CFR.
because my logic has always been 0 or more than 1.
Okay.
Because I don't want the only child to have to kill my side in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the
you call-
Chris Rock argument. Have you ever heard the Chris Rock argument?
No.
No, but I think it's similar. I think a lot of people think that way.
He said
My
when you
own-
have 1, you are the show. When you have 2, you are the usher.
then you have 3,
No, because your 2 is like, go play with each other.
Ah.
Yeah, here's the entertainment. But when you have 1, you are the main event.
Yeah. You
Oh,
entertain.
That's very true.
Ah,
That's very true.
interesting.
Yeah, okay.
Makes sense. Yeah.
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 Because so okay, then my question is, Why not? Why not? Why not?
I'm getting old. I don't have the energy to deal with the third one, and the monetary is it's a very practical point, and I'm at this stage where the kids are more or less okay. They're 3, they're 6, they can play with each other. You don't need to wake up and do the routine again. There's an inertia to go and do a third kid. Apologies. So no.
Like it's like PTSD.
Yes.
So,
but
so,
I
so
wouldn't-
despite
I
the
wouldn't
joys is
put
still
it down.
Despite the joys, you're also quite cognizant of the pains.
Yes, it's a very double-edged sword. It gives you extreme happiness and joy at one end, but it also gives you extreme frustration and pluck out your hair moments on the other. Very,
Then-
very
okay.
equal
Let's
spades.
let's go through the because this is kind of leading to the TFR question, right? So why do you not want to contribute more to our force multiplier? Like because like and what needs to change for you to even consider a
Like
third?
what will push you over the edge kind of thing.
Wow. Monetary support is one of the most practical reasons, but it's not the it and all reasons there is. I think the support for raising a kid is a very, very huge issue too. Some people, they don't have the ability to support the kid or to take care of the kid. For example, they have to go and spend time outside to go and work to make things to make ends meet, for example. Then being able to be there for the kid is also a very strong point. The support for raising a kid is, I suspect, usually a larger issue than just the money itself.
Do you feel you have less time to ration if you have a third one, that kind of thing?
That's for sure. Yeah. You have even less time for yourself. You want to self-improve. You want to do things to, I don't know, watch a show or to go run or cycle for that matter. Maybe you have to give things up, or maybe at that certain point that you realize, I don't want to give this up. I'm comfortable where I am. TFR is somebody else's problem. Let somebody else do it. So, people would think, hey, pass the buck down, or yeah.
But okay, because I personally don't think that having your own children and having more of your own children is meant to be an egalitarian step lah.
True lah.
Nobody has a third or fourth or fifth kid because I want to contribute one more child to the SAF.
You won't think
This
that.
is not the Ng family. I cannot contribute more generals to the SAF.
Yeah, you're right.
But then it's like really like so. Do you feel that the reasons are more personal than policy or societal? That means more
sure.
external than internal, or internal external?
It's definitely internal. It's at the end of the day, when you think about it, you are the one raising a kid, not the government, not the state, not anybody else. The decision is yours and your wife's to make. So the consequences are for both of you to bear. If you figure, okay, we will do this, we will bite the bullet, we'll go through it, and okay. But at a certain point, you decide, okay, you know what? That's it. I think we're good.
Which kind of makes me, it's an interesting point of view, because if you look at the previous generation, because they grew up in a generation where they had big families.
7, 8, 9 uncles
common,
for us.
right?
I mean, 7, 8, 9 uncles for us is not uncommon.
Which is why it's easier for them to picture, let's say, if I were to have family, maybe more than one, it's okay. But we grew up kind of in the stop at 2 era, right? That's why we had smaller families, which is why if we say that we want to have kids, we kind of picture like a family is like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I would like to point out a practicality, by the way. During the national, the budget, the statement, right, when Lawrence Wong was in Parliament and he talked about the budget and talking about having more children and all that, right, he put up a family of 7. That means 2 parents and 5 kids. I want to point out something extremely practical here. If you own a car, and you can own like a, say, Toyota Prius Plus or a Toyota Noah, and you have 7 seats, including the driver, fine. But if that family of 5 kids does not own a car, they cannot take a Grab.
Yeah, you're right.
because a Grab has one driver and 6 seats available. So your family outing, right, requires 2 taxis.
Because, yeah.
Double the cost line.
It's not just double the cost, it's double the practicalities.
Yeah.
Even
Logistic
if I can
issues.
pay 2 taxi fares or 2 Grab fares, right, it is just not practical to have more than 4 children even.
Yeah.
And there's so many of these like little things that make up the family unit and how this family unit lives, right? Of course, yes, maybe we're actually lyrical a little bit saying that this family got 5 kids, and like how many people even want to have 3 kids, let's say 5 kids. But there are practicalities here, and there are, I think this problem to me is like extremely wide ranging, that it cannot be just a single policy or 2 policies or 3 policies that solve this problem. We really need to kind of like look at it much wider and stop nagging for it at it for like we did for the last 40 odd years.
Actually, I don't think it's a problem, man.
Come here, please.
Like, why do you need so many people?
Okay, I think I take that illustration that if the TFR that we have right now, that we will have like 44 for the current 100 people that we have, and then 19 after that for the 44. So we really do have this issue of like how many people can, like 3 generations from now, will walk, talk, and act like us.
Yeah, but you assume that it's a trend that continues forever if you let something be, you see. You see, it's like when in primary 3, right? Then they give you the cotton wool. Then you put a green bean there. Then you got 1 cotton wool and 1 green bean. Then the green bean grow. But if you got 15 green beans, then none of them grow. So I'm saying if now you got 15 green beans, but then in the next generation you're left with 6 green beans, it doesn't mean that the 6 become 2. The 6 can actually maintain a 6, because there's maybe in the world, this is a bit of I can't remember the exact word for it, because since you spring this interview on us, I never go and research these terms again. That there's a golden equilibrium in the world, and we are way past that, especially in Singapore. So how can, I think it's very disingenuous, right, for the Prime Minister to go and say like, oh, all your jobs, right, can be replaced. Okay, like he didn't say that in these words, but many jobs will be replaced by AI and stuff like that. And in the future, the human workforce will be, it's not necessary, we need upskill labor. And he's saying that we will become more labor efficient, but at the same time, we need endless amounts of people. And then let's say you get 30,000 people in every year, plus on top of the native 27 what it is, and you get like 60,000, let's just round up a figure. Then you want to maintain these 60,000 for how long? Then in 15 years' time, then all these new immigrants will also have a replacement rate of less than 2, because that's just the nature of developed societies, right? Which developed society has a replacement rate of more than 2? None, what?
Yes, and I think that's also the point that was made in the speeches during the budget debates. Like even the so-called bastions of developed industrialized societies that have higher birth rates than others also have experienced declines. Like France has experienced a decline, even though it was held up as an example of having more children. The Scandi countries also have this thing where the numbers, like the Swedish, also have a falling birth rate, even though they are hailed as one of the most family-friendly societies.
The Danes as well, yeah.
Yeah, and because to be family-friendly is to have no more than 2 children.
Yes, you can. That's one way to look at it.
Yeah, because okay, let's say you have more than 2 in Singapore, right? And then the average person stay in a 4-room flat, okay? And if you're super luxurious, you stay in a 5-room flat. That's still only 3 bedrooms, what? How many people can you squeeze in 3 bedrooms?
I do agree with that. I do take that point, because I feel that we are also, on this particular point, right, I feel that we are also creating the problem of that we don't want by designing our flats, especially our BTO flats, this way.
And maybe that's just the way it is, right? I was like, how big can you build a flat anyway? So, but that's one thing to it, But then, what's the argument? They say, oh, we should return to like kampung days where 3 people share 1 room. No. And like, who want to raise your child like that, right?
That's why I feel that what they say about the TFR versus how they run the country with regards to TFR
are 2 different things.
In some ways are not coherent at times.
Yeah, and I think it's irresponsible not just on this particular government, because I think there's just a trend of the global elite situation where every government makes the same arguments, and they could go to some mythical fairy tale world where everybody has 3 children in their family and we have a replacement rate of 3, so that this imagined economic pie can keep growing endlessly. But that's not reasonable. Then what, you want to have a world population of about 15 billion, 16 billion, 17 billion, man, at the end of the day? That's just false economics, right? So we should have people who are brave enough to come up and say, like, just bite the bullet, right? And let the population return to an equilibrium.
I mean, I don't agree with that, but I do see the point. Like, because okay, perhaps this is the thing that the divergence between you and me here is that and I to some extent I think it's a bit of a BS idea, is that yes, I would like to see a future of Singapore that, even though I'm not here anymore to see it, to be not way too divergent from what I've seen in my lifetime. Do you get what I mean? Like, if you asked about your life in the 90s, when you looked at the people around the country, it's actually quite homogeneous. Whereas nowadays, if you look at the SAF number 4 name tags, you would just see the same old Tans and Chans and all those Fongs and all that, all the same surnames over again, right? But these days you start to see like the Wens,
Japanese, Filipino.
yeah, you see the Wens, you start to see the Burmese surnames come up, and that's because, and some Thai surnames come up because the nature of our society has also changed, you know. Because not just okay, yes, you may want to blame the immigration again and say they are importing foreigners and all that kind of shit, but regardless of that, the openness of our society and how we have so many trade flows and human service flows and human flows, it's just natural to have the names will change over time, I would say. And perhaps what we need to let go of is like this preset notion of what is Singaporean. But then again, that leads to another different round of nonsense, which is like, what is Singaporeanness? Yeah.
Yeah lah, what's the Singaporean economy lah? Because at the end of the day, there are many smaller countries than us.
Of course, there are more bigger ones as well.
Of course, there are bigger ones than us as well, right? But I think it's a very disingenuous argument to say like we need a certain number to keep things going. And that's just lack of imagination, really.
Yeah, I think it's not just necessarily to just focus on it as just, oh, we need more people to grow the economy problem. I think it's how we keep looking at the economy as if it's like this non-human creature, but in reality, the economy is our way of living and our way of life, and we just keep assuming that our way of life has to grow and grow and grow, and more abundance and more riches. But I think we keep looking at the riches and riches, but we don't consider the things that make living, right?
Yeah, because we got this 1990s economic model at the moment, right? And we just got to wait for it to fade off a little bit, because I think by the time the younger generations grow up, they have probably a different idea about it. But then a lot of the current elite at the moment are those who sprang up after the fall of the Soviet Union. So this is their only idea of economic success, or their economic viability rather. So yeah, I think it's just a lack of imagination, right? I think like if you genuinely want to be a world leader or something like that, you say like, yeah, who can solve this problem? It cannot be solved. Then what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean,
keep going anyway.
Optimistically, the Xennial thing about the 5 Cs is dying out. And it's very clearly dying out, right? Of course, you can argue that the certain things change, right? But it is true that this 5C Xennial thing is dying out, because it's like the Xennials are closer to retirement than ever before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
that's our solution. That's my solution.
Let them go.
yeah,
Just let people slowly die off.
Let them go.
And then
Yeah,
we'll find
but-
the equilibrium.
because I okay, one point is, like, ask me how many children I would like to have, right? My ideal number is still 2 or 3. I don't dare to say more, but I'll say 2 or 3, because just for the practical purposes of, I don't want a single kid of mine to decide whether to turn off my machines like 40 years from now, 50 years from now, hopefully 50, 60 years from now, whatever, right?
But then if you got 3 and then your father need his machine turned off, then you need to take 2 Grab.
No, that's 3 still can take 1 Grab.
3 plus 2. Let's say you don't drive.
That's their problem, not my problem already. Their problem is when they're still young, they still need to take my car. So that's my
Yeah,
problem.
no, let's say you don't drive, then now your father hospital, then hey, not enough Grab.
Maybe those days, right, you'll be flying around like the Jetsons already.
Or teleportation by the time.
Yeah, but
I think your father's gonna live that long.
but back to the point is like, I think it's still, I don't see it as like having this to some degree selfishly. I don't see the 100 become 44 become 19 Singaporeans in the future. This picture, actually, to some degree, right, my first inner response is, oh, why is it my problem? I won't be live then, really, right?
Yeah.
Right, it's like that's not. I like that 19 Singaporeans, maybe they are rare Pokemon. Not my problem. It's not as if I'm gonna be that rare Pokemon also. Right. And I think what really matters for us is like we want our family and especially our kids to be happy and healthy, and that's kind of it. And they're healthy because we are already at this stage of development. Healthy is not just not gonna die of like tuberculosis.
Measles.
Yeah, measles. Although measles is back, thanks America.
Yeah.
And like all these things, it is changed lah. And I think that's what really matters to people. And all these extra things, I don't think the idea of like, because we want to have more tuition for our kids and we have no budget for tuition, therefore we don't have more kids. I don't think that is really the reason also. Like I don't think the cost of putting another kids at Barry's is gonna be the real reason why you don't have a third kid lah. Yeah, so it's just a matter of like encouraging more people who, in my opinion, it's just encouraging people who are on the cusp of thinking or on the edge of having more children to actually go and just execute it. Yeah, and then fortunately or unfortunately, immigration is still a reality that we have to contend with, and then let that top up the difference. That's my opinion.
We have always been an immigrant society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got friends with more kids than what we see here lah. What do you think is their view, or what do you hear from them?
I mean, I know of friends because so far I know personally that I know them is like 3. But even after 3, they also say like, yeah, it is like kind of at the limit already lah.
And that one really loves kids, right?
Yeah.
Really, really love kids, right?
And 3 is like even like not the easiest. Okay, and also because they have it in quick succession, because they also realize it's the gap and all the kind of thing, they take things into consideration. Then it's also the idea of like making, it's also like not having like the best of everything. Like they don't get to travel every single year, like long trips, but they try to give whatever they can for their kids. Which I think they also keep coming back to this whole idea like it's not just for themselves, it's not just a personal thing, it's more like there's the other, it's not just a monetary or the practical considerations, but really the other aspects that drove them. It's not just like liking kids, but rather like, okay, the kids have siblings, then the social consideration of like the children's development kind of thing. Like having a sibling, it's the like, you don't want the sole kid to be the only one growing up on their own kind of thing. And like, as much as we say that they might have friends, but like blood is thicker than water kind of idea lah, that them growing up with a companion that's like, that they know from young, it's different from them having friends at school kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, it's not purely
Money.
economic money or practical consideration, but it's a mix of a lot of factors lah. Yeah, but there's like what you said, there's still a limit to it lor. It's not like, because I love kids or government give me like big family subsidy, I'll go and have 4, I'll go and have 5. Yeah.
Very ready,
Yeah.
Yeah, public policy.
So do you think, just to end off this, right? This is a final question to close this. Is the Singaporean TFR problem really that an unsolvable problem?
I don't think it's an unsolvable problem, but at the same time, I kind of see where Mark's point of view is. Like, is it really a problem we need to solve? But at the same time, not just for the sake of balance, but like, I also do see that there's also a national, for lack of a better term, a nationalistic kind of agenda behind it lah. Like, you always want to see more of your own kind thrive and to have legacy, because we talk about like, oh, we have what 60 years, right? Then we kind of built a society that's like that we can call our own. Then if we just let it go back to like a pure immigrant, let it run as it, then what have we been building for 60 years, or then what's the point, right? If we just can have immigrants to come and replace, then this is just a pot for people to come, and then it has no significance as a home and stuff like that. What?
In all honesty, I think this one's just the trend of the world that's moving forward. That's all. You have people like, you want to go holiday lah, you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to buy this, buy that, and then you tell them suddenly, hey, you need to make your own sacrifice. As parents lah, all the sacrifices has to be made. You tell them, hey, you need to sacrifice all this stuff. You cannot buy this, you cannot buy that, cannot go here, cannot go there. Sometimes the inertia for them, if especially now, everybody's like, oh, we want to live life to the best. I live for myself, like YOLO, and that. You tell them, hey, you cannot do all this stuff, like. You must give up some things for the kids. Then they said, no, maybe not. Leave it lah. I'm just going to live my life. I end it. Then that's somebody else's problem lah. The immigration thing, probably people come here because Singapore is a nicer place, more richer, it's safer and so on. But eventually, if those places get richer too, and the disparity is not so great, then they don't see the point to come here anymore. And then it just becomes everybody's problem, the TFR. And like what Mas said, then just
the golden equilibrium.
Yeah, exactly. So it just becomes a global thing. We just reach a nice balance and stick that out for the rest of our humanity.
The astronaut knocks us out.
Something like that.
So, but what's your take on whether can we solve this TFR problem if it's a problem to begin with?
I just think it's very difficult to convince people that you need more people if, famously, if you're anywhere on the Northeast Line before Serangoon, you might have to skip a train in the morning. And the train is so crowded in Kovan that you cannot get on the train in Kovan. And you're trying to tell these people, we have not enough people. It's just an insane argument to begin with. So if you want more people to have a happy life, you just got to reduce the amount of green beans on the cotton wool at the end of the day, right? And I think you have made an excellent point, right? Like, who cares? Am I going to listen to Lawrence Wong tell me you have a baby or not? No, right? Because at the end of the day, this is deeply personal. So I accept that as a government, you can influence policy to try and encourage certain things to happen, but it's definitely not going to work at an individual level. Nobody's going to be convinced one way or the other by Lawrence Wong. But what will happen is that if you promote a culture where everybody's just more relaxed about things, it probably will encourage a kind of family life. But how can you solve it? See, even those policies that I agree with, right? Like say, okay, we take away testing. Primary 1, Primary 2, Primary 3. Then all these people come here. Then they go for tuition. Then they say they go to the tuition centers where they have the replacement testing or whatever, right? So all these people, it's the people they try to convince anyway. So it's just a whole cultural thing where we're just too crowded lah. And you're so like, is it a problem? I don't think it's a problem. You just got to find better solutions instead of artificially increasing the numbers. And yes, of course you can immigration, I think, but there is a difference between organic immigration and astroturfing. Yeah, and then you can, of course, you have, you promote like you guys.
F a foreigner.
Yeah,
but not like how some people think of it as if, but this is F a foreigner.
Yeah, but to astroturf a population just to maintain some kind of ratio of ethnicity or whatever, that's also insane, right? I just think people just need better solutions. And if they don't have better solutions, then they should let people with better solutions offer some solutions.
Yeah, I mean, taking your analogy of the cotton wool, water, and green beans, right? They can put the water there, they can put the cotton wool there, but I think it's down to us whether we want to put the seeds there. Yeah, and I honestly, to some degree, I don't think that it is an issue, but it is not that massive to the point where everything needs to be moved heaven and earth for it to be moved. Because I think to some degree the future kind of will sort itself out, and selfishly the future also is determined by the future.
Yeah, one way or another.
Right. I think in some ways this whole talk about TFR is like the last generation trying to dictate what the third, fourth generation from today will look like, despite the fact that they will not be alive by then.
Yeah.
You know, the reality is still like what we should do is make sure that whatever offspring we have, we take care of them and make sure that they're taken care of and have their needs are not they don't have wants for needs, and that we make sure that they are healthy in various ways.
Just make sure they are loved.
Wow.
Yes,
Baby,
make sure
don't
they have
hurt me.
love.
General
Don't
trauma.
hurt me no more.
Generational trauma. So
We never thought about that, but yes, make sure they have love.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they have fun in the world, because that's the most important thing. We're all gonna die, so just have fun while you can.
Don't begrudgingly have babies. Yeah, I've had conversations with people who had said that their parent turned to them and said that if I just waited to have you, right, my life would be so much better. And then you have this existential crisis in your own mind of like, am I supposed to be here?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I think we also don't want to put it on another human being who cannot choose.
No, that's the worst thing to say to a kid, man.
Yeah. So do it thoughtfully.
My final thought is that, okay, we're talking about conception again, right? I remember the thought I had was like, when your kid is born, just let them do whatever they want and just love them unconditionally, because the very act of existence, of our existence, was not a chosen one anyway.
Wow, that's deep.
That's deep.
So we went dark, we went deep.
So we don't have a choice in anything. So the things that we have a choice about, let's just try and have some fun with it.
Okay. So Kofo, today I learned. What have you learned today?
I think I sent it to you last week because it kind of just popped out on my feed where there's like people who there's this channel that like kind of explain like the meaning of songs kind of thing. So there's this song that I was quite familiar with, but I actually didn't know that there was a second meaning to that song, which is the song is called "Closing Time" by Semisonic. So basically, it became a very, very common song to play at
Pubs when closing.
pubs and bars when they are closing. So, but then actually the song is being written. The songwriter actually meant it to describe the birth of his first child. Actually, so that was something that I didn't know until it kind of like got sprung on me when like, it popped out on my social media feed. So
Yeah, so basically that one you can if you listen to the lyrics, it could apply to either someone who is about to leave a bar at last call or a child about to leave a womb.
Yeah.
So just have a look at the lyrics, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so mine is also song related. So have you heard of this folk song called Cotton Eye Joe? This American folk song. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from? Cotton Eye Joe.
No.
Right? So is
sounds
this
familiar though.
Yeah. So a lot of people thought that it's the most popular version of this song came from the US. Because it's a very like Western kind of sound.
Yeah. Like country music.
Country music kind of sound. But reality, the most popular version of the song by Rednecks is Swedish. Yes, just like Dr. Bombay is Swedish.
Yeah, that I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Swedish Euro.
Yeah,
dance beat.
it's basically the Swedish people imagining themselves to be from
Country
the south.
people, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
singing that song. Yeah,
Right.
so that's what I learned recently.
Mm.
Okay, so Mark or Ronald, do you have something that you sort of learned recently that blew your minds?
Today I learned that we are genetically closer to salmon than salmon are to sharks.
What?
Yeah. It's a cool one,
Do you
right?
know that?
I didn't know that,
Yeah,
but
that's cool.
it's very probable because of how we look at. Because we always think of like genetics as in like, oh, because it must be same. Okay, mammals we will have like quite a huge percentage of similar genetics, but when it comes to fish, then it's a whole different ballgame. So it can be depends on what end of the scale that you are as a fish. It could be that you're closer to a mammal than, let's say, another end of the spectrum of
Right.
fishes.
Because closely related to the points that sharks have been here for a very long time. So they've been like, they are very, they haven't evolved that much from like hundreds and hundreds of millions of years ago. So the secondary fact is sharks were here before trees were here and before trees could decompose.
So sharks are older than coal.
Yeah.
Basically, as a species.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that.
That is
Yeah.
You have to
new.
check that out, but yeah, something like that.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, cool fact.
Yeah, that's
Still quite mind blown. Okay, Ronald, have you got anything? Or just share a piece of trivia.
yeah. Actually,
Shamelessly promote yourself.
no. Yeah, a piece of trivia. Then just went to the National Gallery today to see the French Impressionism stuff, and I just noticed this fact that all these French Impressionist artists like to go to a place called Fontainebleau to paint pictures of trees. Yeah, interesting.
Fontainebleau or Blue Fontaine?
No, Fontainebleau.
Fontainebleau.
Yeah,
Oh, it's a
Fontainebleau.
forest, yeah.
It's a forest,
Oh.
yeah. It's a forest. So they like to go to this specific forest, and there's this village I forgot the name of. It's so popular with the artists that there's a school for art at that village
Oh,
that they
okay.
go to go and like a pilgrimage.
Sacre bleu.
Yeah. You're right.
But
Yeah.
Sacre Bleu is actually not very French. It's how English people think French people are.
Oh, interesting.
All right, so that's all for our special episode that we sprung on
On unsuspecting friends.
after hearing Ronald and Mark with sharing their thoughts about fatherhood and how it all fits in this whole TFR conversation, right? So, what was an impression that you got?
I think the biggest thing that struck me when we pressed the stop button of the recording, right? The biggest thought I had was about how open and honest they were about their journey and their thoughts on the whole thing.
Mhm.
Because ultimately, family life and fatherhood is a very personal journey. And the manner in which they talk about it and the way that they talk about it in such an open but yet also very grounded way really surprised me.
Yeah, I think for me also is that because when we said that we ambushed them, we really ambushed them. Like we didn't really tell them that they're
Yeah,
gonna.
I still have the screenshot. Basically, I drew a photo of like the potential thumbnail for the episode, and I sent them like, "Can you do this with me?"
Yeah,
And they were like, "Okay."
yeah. So I'm very thankful that they were game because the worst thing that we could have hoped for or that could have happened was that don't want. Then in the end we
Just get shot down.
yeah.
Then we just
then they were very game for it. That's one. And I think secondly was that it was a very incredible insight into their psyche that is, even though we have known each other for like the longest time, right? I think we never really talked that much about like fatherhood or like even like when they gave us the bomb, which is like their wedding invitation, or they said that they're gonna get married and stuff like that, then we were like, okay, we celebrate with each other, but we never really got too deep into like, okay, how like changing your life station, it's kind of like a big deal,
yeah.
but we never really got into the psyche of like how are they feeling or what's their thought process behind like making this huge change in life. You know?
Yes, and honestly, the deepest insight we had before this conversation, right, was just the gossip amongst each other about the other person. Let's be honest. Like, this guy is like, the wife will do this or say this one, or he will do this one.
Or usually our WhatsApp messages, he will grumble. Some of them will grumble about like, I need to do this, then need to do housework, need to do this.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, they have been very frank about like, even though they said that a lot of things about family life is very challenging, but at the end of the day, they still feel that it is something worth doing, which it kind of peels away that, like, I don't know whether is it a male thing that we want to show to be strong or whatever. It's like, no lah, like grumble, but actually inside there is deeper things that there's more than meets the eye line in that sense.
Yes, and it was a very strikingly unmacho kind of conversation. It got so real that it was very unmacho.
Yeah, and
but to be fair, we are not very macho people to begin with. We're not like egotistical.
Yeah.
We're not like the people who like to just shoot and say nonsense.
Then I think the second thing that we would think of is like, then what is one of the biggest thought or takeaway from this whole conversation with them?
Okay, the one especially in relation to the TFR conversation, right? The one that struck me the hardest was when I asked them the question of, if you were given unlimited resources of physical resources, that means if the government gave you lots and lots of cash to the point where you need no more, how many children will you have? And the ideal number of children did not change.
Yeah.
Which is something that I'm still quite taken aback by. Because some of them, I had the impression that they like kids. They enjoy having children. But when I asked them beforehand, like, what's your ideal number of children? Like, I think Ronald said 2. Mark said, I think 1 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then when I repeated the question but framed it differently, said, look, if really you got if you need money to pay for something, the government will give you the kind of like unlimited welfare state kind of situation, and they still give the same number, right?
Which kind of goes back to the idea that we have brought up, and I think multiple commentaries have actually said over the years, is that it is not a cash or a resource issue. And it's hard lah.
I never believed that, to be honest. I always thought that it was a cash issue in a large proportion.
Or resource or something.
Because I always felt that some people don't want to have children because having kids and putting them through the costs of living and putting up with the costs of living, it is basically kind of, my theory is that it kind of denied people of their luxuries. They always had, like, if you were 28 or 27 and you were a PMAT and you were making like $6,000 to $9,000 a month or whatever it is, or $6,000 to $10,000 a month, and you could like occasionally afford a Rolex every other half a year or whatever.
Or go on a big trip every year.
Yeah, you can go for the European trip, go to Club Med and go and ski and all that kind of stuff, right? And that was like the luxury that you can have for the year. But you have to give that up when you're 38 with a kid, right? I think that is one of the many reasons some people choose never to have kids to begin with. And to say that, hey, if everything for the child is paid for, will you still do it? Will you still take on more? And the answer is no, right? Then the realistic situation is no longer just purely about money. It has framed that thing about, it's not about money. There's a lot of other things involved. Yeah. Of course, I think in retrospect, we should have probed further as to like what could make the number bigger. But I think it's already quite telling that to say money is not the big thing is already quite important.
It kind of reinforced the idea that, there are people, there's more to just resource when we are bringing up a kid. It's about the energy that you have. It's like an energy output from the individuals, right? The individual parents. And also there's the idea of support systems that it's not just simply like money can kind of substitute. Yes, it kind of do make sense that if you have a bit more resources in terms of financial side of things, that the support system can be better, but taking care of a child is not just like, like I can throw money at it kind of thing.
Yeah.
because there's like certain things that values, there's the idea of like the environment and all these things that the money is a concern, but it is not at the end of the day, it's not like the biggest thing.
Actually, the biggest concern, if I remember correctly from that conversation, the biggest concern is the amount of presents they can
Yeah.
give. And that leads back to the earliest question that a lot of things that people will say is, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to like have more time to eat with my family. I don't have more time to spend more time with the children. I don't have time for this and don't have time for that, because everyone feels that they have to be online 12 hours a day for work, regardless of whether they are in the office or in the home.
It kind of goes back to the idea that we did kind of bring it up in the previous episode where we talked about it. It's a cultural shift that's needed lah, in that sense. Not just personally, but societal wise, and even at the workplace, socially, we need to kind of rethink all these things.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also the idea of like life is in Singapore, regardless of what you genuinely, life in Singapore is really about the business, it's really about the money, and it's always bearing on everyone's mind. And that really takes a lot of energy away from other things, such as spending more time with family.
Yeah, and it kind of weighs you down whether you know it or not. And then that kind of causes some indirect stress lah.
I agree. And some people will say, okay, it's a choice, what? You can choose to have more time with your family. What would you say about that?
Okay, take for example, even as a person who is currently dating, on trying to make the next step, I think sometimes, like a lot of people tell me, is that, you know, you really need to switch off from work or switch off from whatever they are doing to be in the moment to do whatever they need to be doing, right?
Yes.
I realize in Singapore, because of these things that we have, basically the devices that we have, the connectivity and the technology that we have, sometimes it kind of end up become a hindrance because you are always contactable. And sometimes it's also that it feels a bit inconsiderate to tell people that, you know, I need time.
Yes,
now.
it always feels as if you are leaving money on the table even when you are not.
Yeah.
And I think that is the problem, because we have this whole mentality of either you leave money on the table or you leave nothing on the court, you know, that kind of idea.
It's not just money per se, but it's like the idea of like responsibility. Like if I step away from, or people call me for work-related reasons, even on when I'm off the clock. But there's always this idea that we need to be responsible for you know, whatever that's our portion, that even though, yes, I can say that I will come back to it when I'm back in the office, but it seems as though culturally it still feels a bit taboo-ish in that sense.
Yeah, because it's the whole idea is that you put everything into the court when you're playing. You know, that whole idea of you put everything into the court when you're playing, and it leaves nothing behind for anything else, which includes family. And I think that's the problem that generally life has in Singapore, because when you say that, I've got to put everything into my desk at work, and then you are asked another question of having another person in the household, and then having to put everything into that young one, then it's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do another thing. I can't bear another load. And I think that is a question that a lot of people have for themselves before, like the pre-fatherhood question, right?
Yeah.
It's quite a big challenge, and there's no U-turn for this.
Yeah, and I think one other thing that it kind of is quite enlightening in some sense is that knowing them as friends and knowing them in their persona as friends, and then knowing them as personas as a father, having gone through fatherhood, it's a bit different. Like, yes, they gave up certain things, but at the same time, it's also the idea that what kind of like the previous generation of people who have went ahead of us always say, right? Like, you think too much right now, that's why you will say no, or you will consider, you overthink whereas sometimes in the older generations, because the stakes are not as high, perhaps, or it could be that let's just take it one step at a time kind of thing, which I kind of see from our conversation. Yeah, they really just took it one step at a time. They're like, okay, I just make a decision right now for this choice that I have to make right now. But whatever that's down the line, let's just leave it as time progresses lah. Or I take this step first, then I let it see what's down the line. Then
it feels a lot like, especially as a millennial, it does not feel like Singaporean life is a life where you can make it up as you go along.
Yeah,
which is very scary.
Yeah.
Especially with the system we grew up with, there's not much of a let's make it up as we go along.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that's a thing that is allowed to begin with.
But yet at the same time, you kind of need to do that if you want to have a...
But life in reality is such, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it's Singapore or not, life in reality is a lot of making up as you go along. Yeah.
A bit of like, okay, for lack of a better term, like fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, then the whole idea of like imposter syndrome, whether you can do this or not, all this comes into play lah.
Yeah, but it's also, remember that when you're making it up as you comes, you're not the only one lah.
Yeah.
So hopefully, as we bring this conversation to a close for now, I think it's some points to think about lah. It's not just, these are very human questions, and human questions I feel cannot take on broad monetary answers just like that. It is much deeper than that. The reasons are always very personal, and the overall, I don't think it's a single policy thing that matters. I think it's also a matter of culture, a matter of overall societal mentality, and how we accept having more children in our midst. And also, one other thing that really got to me during that conversation is like, Mark likes to say this, like we are sort of projecting tomorrow's problems today.
Yeah, I mean, he gave the example of like he met the French guy at work through like something, right? Like the Europeans will be more chill, and they're like, yeah, no, why are you going to think so?
It's also back to the same question now. You gotta make it out as you go along.
And could it also be because it's a very Singaporean thing to plan, and
which is why I say, right, we just can't make it out as we go along.
Yeah.
Like we just don't allow ourselves to make it up as we go along.
Yeah.
But the way the world works, you gotta make it out as you go along. Right? We are in the midst of like global change where
to quote our PM, the changing world order.
Changing world order, right? And when people who think they could rely on their allies cannot rely on their allies anymore because
The
this
world,
and that. It's just so drastically changing. I think we have to accept to some degree that making up as we go along and adapting is the real resilience.
Yeah, and I think for me, on the other hand, I think this is a more personal thing, that something that was brought up during the conversation was this idea of like trauma. Of like sometimes we don't feel we are ready or we don't feel we are up to it because we ourselves felt certain things that we were kind of traumatized.
And you don't pass it along.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real
That's
thing.
a real thing, but at the same time, it's also the idea that it's a process rather than like a once-off. Like even as you become a dad or you become a parent, you also try to kind of like write the previous generations wrong and try not to pass it along lah, in that sense.
Because you're more thoughtful about these things.
Yeah.
In the past, it's all along, it's going to be like, I also kena whack.
Then
So
I should wait.
I'm okay what. So next one also can one lah. But now
Yeah.
I think we have the luxury of being more thoughtful about all these things. We have the luxury of slowing down and not be as worried about the necessities.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's why we try and strive for more of the not passing on trauma mentality and all that.
Yeah. So I think that was really something that got me thinking, like, yeah, could it be that a lot of us are just like,
But honestly, I feel it's like you got to make it as you go along also.
yeah,
Because we also have seen even though we are not parents, we also have seen cases of people where they make very bad attempts at gentle parenting. And then they basically release like entitled brats everywhere.
yeah,
You know? So it's like, then there's also another level of trauma that's gonna come out. Yeah. It's you can't do things 100% correct. Just
yeah. It's
do-
not an exam. There's no 10-year series answer
yeah,
to things.
I feel just gotta do things with the best intentions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I can say.
So yeah, so it has been an insightful conversation. I think this is one of the few topics that we spent like more than an episode on.
Yeah, and I think it's good that we went dark and we were quite deep, quite dark, and also quite real this one.
Yeah. And I'm actually quite proud of the episode that we managed to get like a more on ground experiences lah.
Yeah. So yeah, so for more, please subscribe and thank you very much.
Yep. So see you.
Bye.
Bye.